The morning sun rose over Proxima Colony, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Adam Walsh watched from his bedroom window, mesmerized by how the light bounced off the protective dome that shielded their settlement. At 12 years old, Adam had spent most of his life on this border world, where humanity's reach met the vast territories of the Zincari Empire. "Adam, you'll be late for school," his mother called from downstairs. Catherine Walsh moved around their kitchen with practiced efficiency, packing his lunch while simultaneously reviewing reports on her datapad. To the people of Proxima Colony, she was simply Ms. Walsh, an agricultural advisor helping the colony achieve food independence. No one knew that before coming here, she commanded the largest battle fleet in Earth's defense forces. Adam grabbed his backpack and raced down the stairs. "Do you think we'll get to see the stars tonight, Mom?" Mr. Benson said the dome might be clear enough. Catherine smiled, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Maybe, but remember what I taught you about the stars. They're beautiful but dangerous," Adam recited, rolling his eyes good-naturedly. "Some of them belong to people who don't like us." Catherine's smile tightened, but she kept her voice light. "Smart boy. Now off you go." She watched him leave through the front door, running to catch up with his friends waiting at the corner. Catherine allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to watch him disappear from view before turning to the secure communication unit hidden in her office closet. "Commander Walsh checking in," she said after establishing the encrypted connection. "Status. Report received," came the crisp response. "All quiet in your sector. The trade negotiations with the Zincari representatives are proceeding as expected." Catherine frowned. "Something feels wrong. Their diplomatic corps has been unusually agreeable this week. Request additional surveillance beyond the neutral zone. Request denied. High Command doesn't want to risk provoking them over a feeling." She ended the transmission, frustration building in her chest. 5 years she had spent here building a normal life for Adam while keeping watch on this vulnerable border. 5 years of filing reports that were increasingly ignored as Earth Central Command focused on more pressing threats elsewhere. Across the stars, in the gleaming halls of the Zincari Imperial Palace, First Strike Commander Vex Milan stood before the Emperor's War Council. "The scouts confirm it," he reported. "The human colony sits atop the largest deposit of phantium ore we've discovered in 50 years. The Grand Strategist clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The humans don't know what they have. Their settlement patterns show no mining activity. Then we take it before they realize its value," Vex Milan suggested. "A small strike force could secure the location with minimal losses." "What about the peace treaty?" asked an older council member. The Emperor, silent until now, raised one clawed hand. "The treaty covers established territories. This colony exists in contested space. We merely claim what is rightfully ours." No one mentioned that this interpretation stretched the treaty's language to its breaking point. "Proceed," the Emperor ordered. "But keep casualties minimal. We don't need a full human response over one minor colony." Back on Proxima, Adam sat in his classroom, half listening to Mr. Benson explain the colony's water recycling system. His attention kept drifting to the window, where strange lights seemed to flicker at the edge of the atmosphere. The classroom's emergency alert system blared to life without warning. Mr. Benson froze mid-sentence, his face draining of color as he read the message flashing across his tablet. "Children," he said with forced calm, "we need to move to the shelter immediately. This is not a drill." The first impacts hit before they could leave the room. The building shook, dust raining from the ceiling. Through the window, Adam saw ships breaking through the colony's thin defensive shield, angular predatory vessels unlike anything in the human fleet. "Zincari," whispered one of the older kids, voice cracking with fear. Mr. Benson herded them toward the door. "Stay together. The little ones first." Adam helped gather the kindergartners who had been visiting their class for a science demonstration. Their tiny faces were crumpled with fear, some already crying for their parents. "It's okay," Adam assured them, channeling his mother's calm, under-pressure voice. "We just need to get to the shelter. Hold hands and follow Mr. Benson." They made it halfway across the schoolyard when the second wave hit. The administrative building to their right erupted in flames as a direct hit pierced its roof. Adam saw the kindergarten teacher fall, clutching her leg where debris had struck her. Without hesitation, Adam directed the older students to keep moving with most of the young children while he helped the fallen teacher and 3 crying kindergartners who had frozen in place. "We need to keep moving," he told them, supporting the teacher with one arm while gathering the children close with the other. "The shelter is just across the field." The colony's meager defense systems had come online, filling the sky with answering fire. For a moment, it seemed they might hold off the attackers. Then a massive ship pushed through the clouds, dwarfing the defenders. In her office on the other side of the colony, Catherine was already moving, shouting orders into her emergency transmitter as she ran toward the school. The colony's defense coordinator had patched her directly into their systems at the first sign of attack, recognizing that the agricultural advisor knew suspiciously much about military defense protocols. "Divert all power to the eastern shield," she commanded. "That's where the evacuation shelters are." On her wrist display, she pulled up Adam's locator signal. The small dot moved steadily across the school grounds, but too slowly. He was helping someone. "Of course you are," she whispered, pride mixing with terror as she pushed herself to run faster. The Zinkari commander watched the colony's pathetic defenses from his bridge, already calculating how quickly they could begin extracting the Phantom once resistance was eliminated. "Sir, our sensors show some kind of bunker system on the eastern side. Heavy life sign concentrations moving that way. Target their path," the commander ordered dispassionately. "Cut off their retreat." The order was followed instantly. Precision weapons fire rained down, cutting a blazing line between the fleeing colonists and their shelter. Adam saw the explosions block their route and made a split-second decision. "This way," he called, directing his small group toward a drainage ditch that ran under the colony's perimeter. "Mom showed me this once. It leads to the backup shelter." The emergency broadcast system captured it all. A human boy leading injured adults and frightened children to safety, his face set with determined courage, so at odds with his young years. The same broadcast caught the moment when the Zinkari gunship noticed their movement and adjusted its fire. Catherine was 200 meters away when she saw the flash. The concussive force of the blast threw her backward onto the ground. When her vision cleared, the signal on her wrist display was gone. In the Imperial flagship, the Zinkari commander received confirmation of the colony's submission. Resistance had been efficiently neutralized. Casualties kept to acceptable margins for such operations. "Send in the extraction teams," he ordered. "I want mining operations to begin within the day." "What about the survivors?" The commander waved dismissively. "Process them according to standard protocols. The Emperor wishes this matter handled quickly and quietly." None of them knew that among the colony's survivors was a woman who stood perfectly still amid the chaos, her face betraying no emotion. As she watched the emergency broadcasts showing her son's final moments, none of them knew that in her silence, the Empire's doom was already taking shape. That night, as the Zinkari celebrated their easy victory, Catherine Walsh used her hidden communications array one final time. "This is Fleet Commander Catherine Walsh," she said, her voice perfectly steady. "I formally request reinstatement to active duty and direct command of the 7th Fleet. Emergency Protocol Alpha 97. On the other end, there was a stunned pause before the response came. "On what grounds, Commander?" Catherine looked at the frozen image on her screen. Adam helping a child to safety moments before the blast. "War grounds. The Zinkari Empire has just made the worst mistake in their 1,000-year history." The Caraxes Nebula glowed with swirls of purple and blue gas, its beauty masking the deadly radiation that made it nearly impossible to navigate. Nearly, but not completely, which was why Admiral Zex Kalor had positioned the entire Zinkari 3rd Fleet along the only safe passage through the cosmic cloud. 200 warships formed a perfect blockade, their weapons charged and ready. No human ship can pass through without being detected, Zex Kalor assured the Emperor via holographic transmission. "Commander Walsh must come this way to reach our inner systems. When she does, we will end this troublesome campaign. The Emperor's scaled face showed the first signs of stress as lines formed around his eyes. Do not underestimate her again. Your report suggests she is not following standard human tactics. Even the most brilliant commander cannot change the laws of physics, Zexcalor replied confidently. The nebula can only be traversed through this corridor. Back on the Retribution, Catherine studied the tactical display showing the Zincari fleet positions. Her officers waited nervously for her reaction to the trap laid before them. Exactly as predicted, she said finally. They've committed nearly a quarter of their naval strength to one location. Alan Porter frowned. We can't fight those numbers directly. We don't need to. Catherine zoomed out the display to show a broader view of the sector. The nebula isn't our target. She pointed to a different location entirely. This is. The officers gathered around as she outlined her plan. None of them had ever considered such an approach before. Several exchanged worried glances, but none spoke against it. They had seen enough in recent weeks to trust her unconventional thinking. 6 hours later, the Zincari Third Fleet remained in perfect formation, scanners continuously sweeping for any sign of human vessels. Admiral Zexcalor paced his bridge, growing increasingly restless as hour after hour passed without incident. Could they have detected our presence? He asked his sensor officer. Impossible, the officer replied. Our position is perfect. Our ships are running at minimal power to avoid detection. If they approach within a light year, we will know. The communications officer suddenly straightened in his chair. Admiral, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from Central Command. Zexcalor moved to his station. Put it through. The officer worked his controls with growing confusion. Sir, it's not coming through our secure channel. It's... His voice trailed off as the main view screen activated on its own. Catherine Walsh's face appeared before the entire bridge crew. Behind her, they could see what was unmistakably the command center of the Imperial Palace on the Zincari homeworld. Admiral Zexcalor, she said calmly. Your trap was well conceived. Unfortunately for you, I don't need to pass through the Caraxes Nebula. The Admiral's inner eyelids flicked rapidly in distress. This is a trick, a simulation. Catherine stepped aside to reveal the Imperial throne room behind her. It was empty except for small teams of humans in tactical gear, carefully placing devices throughout the chamber. While you concentrated your forces at the nebula, my infiltration teams bypassed your outer defenses entirely, she explained, her voice still eerily calm. We entered your space 3 days ago using captured Zincari transport signatures. Zexcalor slammed his clawed hand on the emergency alert button. All ships return to the homeworld immediately. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Catherine continued. Look at your engine status. Throughout the fleet, alarm klaxons began to sound as ship after ship discovered their engine control systems had been remotely compromised. Not destroyed, simply locked out of crew control. How? Zexcalor demanded, his composed demeanor finally cracking. You've been running your systems on minimal power to avoid detection, Catherine explained, which made it remarkably easy for our specialized drones to attach themselves to your hull and interface with your computer networks. A tactic I developed during the Orion conflict, but never had reason to use until now. The Admiral watched helplessly as status reports flooded in from across his fleet. 200 ships, the pride of the Imperial Navy, disabled without firing a single shot. What do you want? He asked finally. Ransom? Territorial concessions? Catherine's expression didn't change. I want you to understand. You took something precious from me. Now I will take everything from you, one piece at a time. The screen switched to show footage from Proxima Colony, the attack, the fleeing children, and finally, Adam helping others escape before the blast took his life. You didn't even know his name, Catherine said quietly. Adam Walsh, 12 years old. He liked stars and history books and helping people. He wanted to be a diplomat when he grew up because he believed different species could learn to understand each other. Zexcalor stared at the screen, seeing the human child's face clearly for the first time. Something uncomfortable stirred in his chest, an emotion Zinkari warriors were taught to suppress. This was never about conquest, Catherine continued. Your empire killed my son because it was convenient, because your system values efficiency over life, because none of you stopped to consider the consequences of your actions. She looked directly into the camera and even across the vast distance of space. Zexcalor felt the weight of her gaze. Your life support systems remain fully functional. You have enough food and water for 30 days. In exactly 29 days, control of your ships will be returned to you. Use that time to consider what kind of empire you want to serve, one that casually destroys lives or one that values them. The transmission ended, leaving the Admiral and his entire fleet floating helplessly in space, unable to fight, unable to flee, with nothing to do but watch the recorded footage of Adam Walsh's final moments playing on a continuous loop on every screen throughout the ship. On the Zinkari homeworld, panic spread through the Imperial Court as news arrived of both the fleet's immobilization and the human presence at the palace. The Emperor himself had been evacuated to a secure bunker, but the psychological damage was done. Humans had reached the heart of the Empire with apparent ease. Catherine returned to the Retribution, where her officers waited for a victory celebration that never came. Instead, she retreated to her private quarters, where for the first time, since Adam's death, she allowed herself to look at his photographs. Phase 1 complete, she whispered to his smiling image. They know who you were now. Soon they'll understand what that means. Alan Porter found her there hours later, reviewing plans for the next stage of her campaign. Earth High Command is demanding a report, he said. They're concerned about the scale of our operations. Catherine didn't look up from her work. Tell them it's proceeding exactly as planned. The Zinkari haven't fired a single shot against us, which means we're still operating within the parameters they approved. Porter hesitated. Some of the crew are asking what the end goal is here. We've crippled a major fleet and infiltrated their homeworld, but we haven't pressed the advantage. Because this isn't about destruction, Alan. Catherine finally looked up. It's about education. Education? The Zinkari need to learn that actions have consequences, she explained. Not through annihilation, but through understanding. When Admiral Zexcalor's fleet regains control, they'll find something else. The complete tactical analysis of how easily their defenses were bypassed, and recommendations for how to prevent it from happening again. Porter looked confused. You're helping them? I'm showing them a better way, Catherine replied, turning back to her plans. Just as Adam would have wanted. The massive dreadnought Retribution hung in space like a steel predator, its kilometer-long hull reflecting the distant starlight. Inside the command bridge, officers worked in tense silence, stealing glances at the woman who stood motionless before the main viewport. Catherine Walsh had changed. The officers who had served under her before noted the difference immediately. Gone was the commander who joked during tense situations, who knew the names of every crew member's children, who led with compassion tempered by duty. This Catherine Walsh was a stranger, her eyes cold, her voice flat, her orders precise and uncompromising. Alan Porter, her executive officer for 7 years, approached with caution. Commander, Earth High Command has transmitted their concerns about our current heading. He handed her a data tablet. They're requesting we return to the Arcturus station for strategic reassignment. Catherine took the tablet without looking at it. Send them my regards, Alan, and inform them that under Article 7 of the Military Command Code I am exercising my right of personal justice. Porter's face paled. Article 7 was ancient military law, rarely invoked in modern warfare. It granted a commander the right to pursue justice for personal grievances against an enemy, provided they had suffered direct harm during a state of open conflict. They won't accept it, he warned. Catherine finally turned to face him. They already have. Admiral Yamato and Generals Chen and Okafor signed off an hour ago. She handed him back the tablet with the approval already displayed. They know what's coming, and they want the Zinkari to face it. Porter read the document, his professional mask slipping for a moment. You're going after the entire empire, not just the commander responsible? Catherine moved to the tactical display, bringing up star charts showing Zincari territory. The commander was following orders. The Emperor approved the attack. The system allowed it to happen. Her finger traced lines between vulnerable points in Zincari space, so the system must change. Porter watched her methodically mark targets across the display. This isn't like your usual strategies. My usual strategies were designed to minimize casualties while achieving objectives, Catherine replied without emotion. These are different objectives. Across the stars in the Grand Council chamber of the Zincari Empire, military advisor Zex Kalor addressed the Emperor and his ministers with practiced confidence. The Proxima operation was completed, with minimal complications. Mining operations are already extracting Phantium at exceptional rates. He displayed hollow projections of the mining equipment now covering what had been a human settlement. The surviving colonists have been processed according to protocol. The Minister of Intelligence chittered nervously. Our border sensors have detected unusual movement among human military vessels. 3 battle groups have changed course in the last solar cycle. Zex Kalor dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Standard human response to any border incident. They posture, they protest, they negotiate, then they accept reality. He brought up historical data on previous human Zincari confrontations. Their military doctrine emphasizes minimal escalation and diplomatic resolution. The Emperor nodded, his scaled crest relaxing. Continue monitoring but proceed with the extraction. The Phantium will fuel our expansion for decades. As the meeting adjourned, a junior intelligence officer approached Zexa Kalor with obvious hesitation. Sir, there's something unusual in the communication intercepts from Earth Command. Speak plainly, Zex Kalor ordered. They mentioned someone called the Phantom taking command of their response fleet. Our translation algorithms suggest this term carries significant emotional weight. Zex Kalor searched their database but found only fragmentary references to a human commander who had been active during the Orion conflict 15 years earlier. Nothing that warranted concern. Add it to the monitoring parameters, he said dismissively. But focus on their fleet movements. Actions matter, not names. 7 days later, the Zincari outpost on Delmach 4 went silent. The monitoring station simply stopped transmitting without any distress signal or sign of attack. The Imperial response. Vessel that arrived found the base intact but completely empty. No personnel, no bodies, and most disturbing of all, no data. Every system had been wiped with surgical precision. Before the investigation could begin properly, 3 more outposts went dark in exactly the same manner. No warnings, no distress calls, no signs of battle. Just silence, followed by the discovery of abandoned facilities with their defense systems neatly disabled and their data cores wiped clean. In each location, the investigation teams found a single anomaly, a small holographic projector placed in the command center, each displaying the same image when activated. A human boy's face, frozen in an expression of determined courage. The Zincari Emperor himself received the first message from Catherine Walsh. It appeared without warning, on his private communication terminal, bypassing security protocols that were believed impenetrable. I am Commander Catherine Walsh of Earth Fleet, the human woman stated without preamble, her face expressionless. Your forces killed my son at Proxima Colony. He was 12 years old helping younger children escape your bombardment. The Emperor signaled frantically for his security team, but the message continued uninterrupted. I don't expect you to remember one human child. Adam wouldn't have expected it either. He was realistic about the universe. For the first time, emotion flickered. Across her face, not grief, but something colder and more dangerous. I've studied your empire for 5 years. I know your weaknesses, your blind spots, your contingencies. I know how your military thinks, how your commanders react, how your emperor leads. The security chief entered, alarmed to find the Emperor, watching the unauthorized transmission. You have taken something irreplaceable from me. Catherine continued. Now I will dismantle your empire. Not quickly, not completely. Piece by piece, system by system. I will leave your people alive to witness what happens when you kill a child whose mother understands the architecture of your power better than you do. The message ended abruptly. The Emperor turned to his security chief, rage masking his unease. Find this human. Make an example of her. 3 days later, Imperial Command lost contact with the military installation on Vega Prime. This time there was a brief transmission beforehand. Security footage of Imperial guards falling unconscious at their posts, as an odorless gas filtered through their ventilation systems. Human figures in environmental suits moved efficiently through the compound, placing small devices at key structural points. The last frame showed a tall woman removing her helmet, looking directly at the camera. Catherine Walsh's face betrayed. No satisfaction, no anger, only the calm certainty of someone following a carefully plotted course. Admiral Zex Kalor stood before the Emperor, his previous confidence shattered. The human called the Phantom. We've uncovered her complete record. During the Orion conflict, she destroyed the entire hegemony fleet without losing a single ship. Their commanders surrendered rather than face her tactics. Why was this information not available earlier? The Emperor demanded. Most of her file was classified by Earth Command, Zex Kalor admitted. We're dealing with their most accomplished strategist, and she's operating outside their normal protocols. The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of deep distress in his species. Set a trap. The Caraxes Nebula. Position the Third Fleet there and wait. Zex Kalor bowed low. It will be done, Exalted One. Neither of them noticed the tiny maintenance drone hovering in the corner of the room, its cameras recording every word, every plan, transmitting it all to the human dreadnought that waited just beyond their sensor range, where Catherine Walsh added one more piece to her strategy board and prepared her response to their predictable trap. Begin Phase 2, she told Alan Porter, who no longer questioned her methods, and prepare the message for the Third Fleet Commander. What message? Porter asked. Catherine's lips formed something that might have been a smile on anyone else. Their options. They can face us fighting or they can face us another way. She turned back to the star chart, where Zinkari territory was already showing gaps where Imperial control had been systematically removed. Either way, they will face us. 29 days passed exactly as Catherine had promised. The Zinkari Third Fleet regained control of their ships, only to discover detailed schematics of their own security weaknesses, along with methodical instructions for improving them. Admiral Zex Kalor sat in his quarters, studying the information with growing unease. What kind of enemy provided the tools to strengthen their defenses? Meanwhile, the Zinkari Empire faced a crisis unlike any in its 1,000-year history. Reports flooded in from across their territory of strategic installations going offline, communication networks failing, and supply chains disrupted. Yet there was a strange pattern to the chaos. Civilian targets remained completely untouched. Evacuation routes were conspicuously left open, warning systems activated before military facilities were neutralized. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor summoned his high command for an emergency session. Fear hung heavy in the air as ministers and generals filed into the throne room, each bearing news of another systematic failure in their domain. How can one human commander cause such devastation? Demanded the Minister of Defense. Our intelligence indicated humans prioritize diplomatic solutions over military action. The Emperor's gaze fell on Admiral Zex Kalor, recently returned from his humiliating defeat. Explain this situation. Zex Kalor stepped forward, his posture showing none of his former confidence. Commander Walsh is not following standard human military doctrine. After analyzing her pattern, I believe she is engaging in what humans call psychological warfare. He activated a holographic display showing a map of affected territories. Notice that she targets strategic choke points in command structures, but leaves civilian infrastructure intact. She's not trying to destroy our empire, she's demonstrating that she could. To what end? Asked the Emperor. Before anyone could answer, All communication devices in the room activated simultaneously. Catherine Walsh's face appeared on every screen, her calm expression now familiar to everyone present. "I apologize for the interruption," she said, "but I believe this conversation concerns me directly." The Emperor rose from his throne, rage briefly overcoming fear. "How dare you invade the sacred chambers of imperial rule, the same way your forces invaded a peaceful colony?" Catherine replied without emotion. "The difference is that I haven't killed anyone. Not a single Zinkari life has been lost in my campaign, despite having the capacity to destroy your entire fleet." The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked finally. "I want you to understand what you've created," Catherine said. "Your empire functions on a principle that efficiency justifies any action. That strength gives you the right to take what you want. That lives, particularly non-Zinkari lives, are acceptable losses in pursuit of your goals." She leaned closer to the camera. "That principle killed my son, and that principle will eventually destroy your empire, if not by my hand, then by someone else's. Because empires built on fear and domination always, eventually, fall." "Admiral," Zexkalor stepped forward. "If your goal is not destruction, what is it?" "Reform," Catherine answered simply. "I've studied your history. Your people weren't always conquerors. Your earliest writings speak of balance, of harmony with other species. Somewhere along the way, you lost that wisdom." Murmurs spread through the room as the older ministers recognized the reference to ancient Zinkari philosophy. "The Battle of the Crimson Gate," Catherine continued. "This is where it happens, where you make your final stand against my forces. We both know it's your most defensible position, where your elite guardians are already gathering." The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. How could she know about their secret defensive plans? "I will meet you there in 7 days," Catherine said. "You can bring whatever forces you wish, and then you will have a choice to make." The transmission ended, leaving the High Command in stunned silence. On Earth, diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent messages. The Human Coalition Council had convened an emergency session after receiving disturbing reports about Commander Walsh's activities. "She's gone too far," argued the diplomatic secretary. "We gave her leeway under Article 7, but this has escalated beyond a measured response. She's threatening the entire Zinkari Empire." Admiral Yamato, who had approved Catherine's original request, remained calm. "Has she actually violated our protocols? There have been no civilian casualties, no permanent destruction of Zinkari infrastructure. She simply exposed their vulnerabilities. And in doing so, nearly triggered an interstellar war," countered another council member. A junior communications officer interrupted the heated debate. "Excuse me, but we've just received a transmission from Commander Walsh. It's addressed to this council specifically." Catherine's face appeared on the main screen, looking tired but composed. "Members of the Coalition Council, I understand your concerns about my campaign against the Zinkari. I want to assure you that everything proceeds according to plan." The Council Chair leaned forward. "Commander, you've pushed this far beyond what we authorized. We're ordering you to stand down immediately." Catherine nodded. "I expected this response. But before you recall me, you should know that the Zinkari Empire has begun internal discussions about reforming their military protocols regarding civilian populations. Their own historical records about peaceful coexistence with other species are being circulated among their officer corps for the first time in centuries." This gave the council pause. "What exactly is your endgame here, Commander?" Admiral Yamato asked. "The same as it's always been," Catherine replied. "Justice for my son, not through destruction but through change. The battle at Crimson Gate will be the final stage. After that, I will return to Earth and accept whatever consequences you deem appropriate for my actions." The transmission ended, leaving the council to debate whether to trust her or send forces to stop her. In the end, they decided to wait and watch, though several battle groups were positioned to intervene if necessary. 7 days later, the Retribution and its battle group arrived at the Crimson Gate, an ancient space station built into a massive, asteroid field that guarded the approach to the Zinkari core worlds. As predicted, the Emperor's elite guardians had assembled there, their ships forming an impressive defensive line. Catherine stood on her bridge, watching the enemy formations. With calm assessment, Alan Porter approached, handing her a small package. "The item you requested from Earth," he said quietly. "Are you sure about this approach?" Catherine took the package, checking its contents before securing it in a shuttlecraft. "It's what Adam would have wanted," she said. "He believed in understanding, not destruction." She turned to face her crew, who had followed her through this unconventional campaign without question. "Prepare the shuttle and ready the evidence package." "Evidence package?" Porter asked. Catherine's eyes were cold. The final lesson, identifying exactly which Zinkari commander ordered the attack on Proxima Colony, and who could have stopped it, but didn't. The shuttle launched, carrying just Catherine and the package toward the massive Zinkari formation. No weapons, no escorts, just a single human face-to-face with the elite forces of an empire. "They'll fire on you," Porter had warned. Catherine had simply smiled, the first real smile anyone had seen since Adam's death. "No, they won't, because by now they're curious, and that curiosity will change everything." Catherine's shuttle approached the massive Zinkari defense line, seemingly tiny against the backdrop of warships and the ancient space station embedded in the asteroid field. On the command ship, Admiral Zexcalor watched with growing tension as the lone human vessel continued its direct course. "She carries no weapons," reported the sensor officer. "Scans show only one human life form aboard." The Emperor himself had arrived to witness this final confrontation. He stood beside Zexcalor, his scaled face unreadable. "Allow her to dock. I wish to hear what she has to say before we decide her fate." Catherine guided the shuttle into the massive docking bay, where hundreds of elite Zinkari guards stood, at attention, weapons ready. She stepped out alone, carrying only a small case. The guards parted silently as she walked through their ranks toward the waiting Emperor and his commanders. She stopped precisely 10 paces from them. Military protocol, observed even in this extraordinary situation. For a long moment, no one spoke. The vast docking bay was silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. "Commander Catherine Walsh," the Emperor finally said, "you have challenged our empire, infiltrated our defenses, and humiliated our fleet. Yet you come here alone, and unarmed." Catherine nodded. "Because this isn't about military victory. It never was." She placed the case on the floor between them and opened it. Inside was a simple data crystal, and an object that made several of the Zinkari officers step back in surprise. A ceremonial blade of human design. This data crystal contains complete evidence identifying the specific chain of command responsible for the attack on Proxima Colony, Catherine explained, her voice steady. It traces the decision from initial resource discovery through attack authorization to execution. The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "And the blade?" "An ancient human tradition," Catherine replied. "When a grievous wrong has been committed, justice may be satisfied through the responsible party's admission and atonement." She looked directly at Fleet Commander Vex Malon, who had ordered the attack. "Your empire values strength and personal responsibility. Here is your opportunity to demonstrate both." The docking bay erupted in hisses and clicks as the Zinkari officers debated this unexpected development. Vex Malon stepped forward, his posture defiant. "I ordered the attack based on Imperial protocol," he declared. "The colony possessed resources, vital to our expansion. Their deaths were regrettable but necessary." Catherine's expression didn't change. "Necessary? My son was 12 years old. He died helping kindergarten children escape your bombardment. Was that necessary for acquiring Phantium ore?" For the first time, doubt showed in Vex Malon's eyes. The Emperor watched this exchange carefully, seeing the effect of Catherine's words not just on Vex Malon, but on all his officers. "Play the full recording," the Emperor ordered suddenly. A holographic display activated showing the complete footage of the Proxima Colony attack, not just Adam's death, but the entire sequence of events from the first shots to the final. Moments of resistance. Unlike the edited propaganda usually shown to imperial forces, this was raw and unfiltered. The Zinkari officers watched as their weapons tore through schools, homes, and medical facilities. When it ended, the docking bay remained silent. Vexmalin looked at the blade, then at Catherine. "What do you expect me to do?" "Acknowledge the wrong," Catherine said simply. "Then help make sure it never happens again." What happened next shocked everyone present. Vexmalin picked up the blade not to attack but to present it formally to the Emperor. "Handle first. Exalted One, I have failed to uphold the true honor of our empire," he said, his voice carrying throughout the bay. "I followed protocols without questioning their wisdom or justice. I valued efficiency over life. I bring shame to my position and my ancestors." The Emperor took the blade, studying it for a long moment before turning to Catherine. "What terms do you demand for peace, Commander Walsh? Territory? Reparations? Our unconditional surrender?" Catherine's answer surprised them all. "Reform, not retribution. Establish a civilian oversight council within your empire. Change your laws regarding military actions against civilian populations. Create a memorial on your homeworld, not just for my son, but for all innocent casualties of your expansion." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only the Emperor and his immediate circle could hear. "I could destroy your empire. My battle group is positioned to strike at your core worlds if I don't return safely. Earth's fleet would follow, and your people would suffer for generations." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But that would only create more grieving parents. My son wouldn't want that to be his legacy." The Emperor studied her face, seeing for the first time not just the merciless commander who had outmaneuvered his forces, but also the mother who had lost her child. "Why show mercy when you have the power for complete vengeance?" "Because this was never about revenge," Catherine replied. "It was about making you understand the consequences of your actions. About forcing you to see the lives you so casually destroyed. About making you question a system that treats death as an acceptable byproduct of progress." After a long deliberation with his advisors, the Emperor made his decision. The terms were accepted. Catherine returned to the retribution, leaving behind not just the evidence crystal, but also detailed proposals for reforming imperial protocols. 6 months later, Catherine Walsh resigned her commission despite being hailed as a hero throughout human space. She established a diplomatic foundation that worked to strengthen the new peace between humans and the Zinkari. 2 years after that, she returned to the rebuilt Proxima colony for the opening of a school named after her son. Children from both species studied there, learning each other's languages and cultures. A reporter asked her why she had shown mercy when she had the power to exact complete vengeance. Catherine looked at the mixed group of human and Zinkari children playing together in the schoolyard. "There are 2 lessons every civilization must learn," she explained. "The first is that actions have consequences. The second is that even in our darkest moments, we have a choice about who we become." The Zinkari learned the first lesson. I needed to learn the second. On the Zinkari homeworld, the Emperor led a yearly remembrance ceremony at the memorial Catherine had requested. The centerpiece was not a statue or monument, but a simple earth oak tree grown from a seed that came from Proxima colony. Beside, it stood a plaque bearing an inscription in both human and Zinkari languages. "From single tragedies come great changes. Remember Adam Walsh, who taught 2 civilizations the true meaning of strength." The former Admiral Zex Kalor, now head of the newly formed Interspecies Relations Council, often brought young officer candidates to this memorial. "Remember this tree," he would tell them. "It grows from the soil of our greatest mistake and our greatest lesson. Never forget that true power lies not in destruction, but in the wisdom to know when not to use it." And somewhere beyond the stars, Catherine imagined Adam would be proud, not of her campaign against the Zinkari, but of what came after. 2 former enemies finding a better way forward because one boy's life had mattered enough to change them both.